Okay, we're now with the Juvenile Court, and we have with us Councilman Stein, Councilman Glover, and this was rescheduled. I know there was a death in your family, Judge. I'm sorry for that and have our condolences. If you would introduce yourself and then your colleagues and just make whatever budget presentation you'd like to make.
Thank you, Mayor. To my left, my name is Sophia Brown Crawford. I'm the current Juvenile Court Judge of Davidson County. To my left is Mr. Tim Adjent, Court Administration. To my right is Mr. Jim Swack, Court Administration. And then to his right is Ms. Wendy Buchanan, who is our Chief Probation Officer. I would like to start out by, she's our new Charlie Ward. I'd like to start out first by thanking Mr. Riebling, Mr. Hinote, Alicia Virva, Talia Lomax, and you, Mayor, for giving us this opportunity to make our budget presentation. The court welcomes this opportunity because this is our opportunity to let you, the mayor, know, as well as the city of Nashville know, the great accomplishments that juvenile court has made over the course of the last year in terms of budget considerations. Basically, I'd like to start by saying at juvenile court, we do more with less. While we only have 116 employees, which to some might sound like a whole lot, we do so much more than what you would ever expect with 116 employees. For instance, in fiscal year 13, our supervised probation staff had over 25,000 face-to-face contacts with youth on their probation rolls, consistent with last year, up a bit. Those contacts include after-hours curfew checks that were conducted in conjunction with the Metro Police Department, 400 probationer room searches in cooperation with the Metro Nashville Police Department, and resulted in the recovery of handguns, various other weapons, illegal drugs, and drug paraphernalia that we were able to get off of the streets. 70% of the youth that were on our probation this year successfully completed their probation and did not return to the court for any subsequent delinquent offense. While we can certainly get that number up, we're very proud of that. The Metro Student Attendance Center received approximately 2,230 new referrals. Those referrals come from public schools, the police department, and other juvenile court programs, and that's a 2.2% increase from last year. 1,078 of those initiated cases were continued into the fiscal year 13 for continued monitoring. We also had additionally 1,692 truancy petitions, which is also an increase from last year. In fiscal year 14, MSAC has partnered with the Metro Nashville Public Schools and the Tennessee Bar Association to continue our youth court program. I'm sure you recall that we have been in Cane Ridge. We have now expanded that program, I believe, to 3 high schools. And we have also, under my direction, started back the community court dockets at 4 high schools, where we're actually having truancy court in the high schools once a month. In fiscal year 13, there were 1,033 youth for which complaints were filed, but resolutions were reached by virtue of counseling and other resources offered by our court staff that prevented those youth from having to actually come before a court or a petition be filed. Our intake pretrial probation staff had 1,037 youth that received pretrial diversion services, which also diverted those kids from being ultimately placed on supervised probation or coming before a judicial officer. And this is a figure that, for the first time we pulled this year, that was quite staggering to me, and that is our intake case initiation. Records reflected that they managed 6,716 cases that were originated through our intake division, not the clerk's office. They do their own fair share of originating of petitions in addition to that, but we had 6,700 that originated eliminated by virtue of our intake division. In fiscal year 13, our Foster Care Review Board program, which is made up of over 100 volunteers that we are very thankful for, reviewed cases of approximately 1,697 youth that are in foster care. And you all are well aware that those volunteers review those cases to help us keep folks accountable in terms of our kids that are in foster care. Our child support and parentage dockets raised over $313,000 for child support that was collected on behalf of youth in foster care, placing us in the top 6 of the judicial districts for collection of child support for foster care youth. In terms of our goals will continue to be to reduce the number of youth referred to juvenile court for delinquent and status offenses by seeking, developing, and supporting active collaborations. I asked them to put together a list of our community partners, and I think it's about 2 pages long. We have increased those collaborations, and we will continue to do so with community not-for-profit agencies, faith-based agencies, and other agencies to develop more effective, proactive responses, because we want to be proactive rather than reactive to the youth and families we serve. Again, another goal, obviously from last year, is to continue to try to transition some of our grant-funded probation positions from unstable, non-reoccurring federal and state grant funds. I am pleased to announce this year that we got notice that those funds will be available. Usually over the last 2 or 3 years, our Judge Green would come to budget hearings, and we didn't have that confirmation, but we stayed on them pretty hot and heavy and got that confirmation before this budget hearing. The next goal that we have is to obtain certification of our juvenile court supervised probation program so that it will be an evidence-based national model program by the Federal Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. While I personally believe that we are best in the state in terms of our probation department, I think if we could get that certification, it might open the door for some funding for us in terms of our probation department. As I said, Mayor, we have a whole lot going on in juvenile court. We have been able to submit a proposed budget with the requested 3% cut that was asked of us. And the way that we would propose that 3% cut is to, put my hands on it, reduce the number of detention beds under our current contract. Can you help me, Jim? Fine.
Yeah,
the current contract for detention is for 48 beds. If we're required to reduce our budget by 3%, we would propose when that contract is up to reduce that from 48 to 32 beds, which would yield a savings of approximately $240,000. The reason for that is because we have done our own internal survey in terms of the use of those detention beds, and I'm pleased to announce that there has been a steady decrease in the use of detention beds. Just like the nation, all across the nation, exhibits that there's been a decrease in delinquency, that's applying here in Nashville as well. So that's how we would propose to reduce our budget if required to do so. And with that, I'll turn it over for any questions.
How many people are in detention now?
What was our census this morning?
14.
14.
14. And what's your average census throughout the year?
We just pulled those numbers last week. I did not bring them.
About 22.
About 22.
It's around 22 to 30 there.
We have been as low as 9 single digits in recent months, so.
Have you looked at whether you can reduce the number of beds beyond the number you looked at?
Because of the cost, if you go over the number in your contract, we have globally looked at what would be a safe figure, and that was the figure that we came up with. If we didn't have to, I mean, there's a number of other things that if we don't end up having to submit a 3% cut that we're also taking a look at, just so you know, and that is one of my biggest priorities right now is to find alternatives for status offenders to detention. We've done also an internal study where we are basically averaging one child a night that's being brought in on a status offense to our detention center. I've been real pleased with the Pathways program that this Metro Schools is now looking at, because I really think that we need to find some alternative, and we have been working with Reconciliation Ministries and several other not-for-profits. I don't think it makes sense to open a 24/7 facility for kids to be taken to that are status offenders. But I do think there needs to be an alternative, and we need to contract with somebody where we can have a few beds available for that purpose.
Well, do you have a sense of what?
And we get credit for empty beds in detention.
Have you ever gone up to 35 or 40 in the past year?
The past year?
No, we have not.
We have not.
And we came up with the 32 based on a review of the past 5 years census data and looking at what the highest number was down to the lowest number, and that's where we came up with a projected need of 32.
Rich? Well, thank you for a very clear report, and I appreciate the thought that went into the 3% reduction. That's good. Do a great job. Appreciate all you do for the city, and good seeing you.
Thank you very much. And I want to end by thanking all of the 116 employees we have at Davidson County Juvenile Court, because they're not there for the money. They are working really, really hard and doing a lot with very little. So I want to applaud their services to Juvenile Court, too. And thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
You too.